più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno.
Hi, I'm Grandma Susie. I have 9 grandchildren, 7 granddaughters, 2 grandsons. When my first grandchild was born, Kate, she had 11 grandmothers, and my grandmother was still alive, so she had a great Grandma Seamers. My mother was alive. She had a great Grandma Seamers. She had me. I was Grandma Seamers, but not for long. I became Grandma Susie, and so I have remained all these years. And I love to cook. A lot of my grandchildren love to cook, which pleases me no end. My grandson Joe has gotten into sourdough, and in the future we will have some sourdough recipes to show you. But for today, I'm starting with something really simple, but very good. A little bit unusual. It's called Cacio a pepe. If I mispronounced, my apologies, but that's the way I pronounce it. All it means is spaghetti with pepper. Very simple. So we're going to start by putting some pepper into, I love carbon steel. I've got all kinds of pans sitting here. And we're going to put some good pepper, certified organic, and I'm going to do a rough grind on a carbon steel pan. That's going to create some depth of flavor in the pepper. I guess not that it needs a lot more, but it really does make it more punchy. And in the meantime, we're going to get our water heating. And remember, we only need about 1 inch of water in the pan. So I can't tell you a measurement. I can't tell you how many cups or half cups. What I can tell you is you need about 1 inch of water in whatever size your pan is. And that's going to be enough to cover your spaghetti by about 1 inch. And that's the important thing we need to work on. We are going to put a little bit of water into the, a little bit of salt into the water, but not a lot because cheese itself is very salty. So we're going to just put a little pinch of salt, especially if you're like me and you're using a lot of cheese, little salt. If you're using a little cheese, a little more salt. My water's already at a boil because there's not much in there. This will be enough for a nice serving for 1. Now supposedly this was a meal of choice for the restaurateurs who, after they closed the restaurant for the night, they'd all go out together and have a few. And then they would go back to one of the restaurant kitchens and make a big pot of cacio e pepe. And that was their finish for the whole evening, and I can understand why. This is really a good dish, and so simple. So this is boiling away. While it's doing its thing, I'll talk a little bit about the olive oil I use. This got high rankings on America's Test Kitchen. I am an avid fan of that site, and this is the Rich and Robust. The brand is California Olive Ranch. And I am not disappointed. I keep 2 in my cupboard. The Rich and Robust for things like this where it's more of a finishing oil. And then I have one that's just really good for everyday cooking, just for sauteing, etc. You don't want to saute things that are really, where you really need a lot of heat with olive oil. It's not your best choice then, because it really doesn't handle the really high heats. But it is good for an easy saute of things, vegetables, wonderful flavor. So while this is cooking, I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. It might be done a little earlier or it might take a little longer than I think. Okay, let's take a look here. While this is boiling, we're going to go ahead and do our grating of the cheese. So we're going to do the heavy-duty side. Again, this is a matter of taste. This is a kind of dish you're going to make again and again, and you're going to know how big you want this pile of cheese to be. I like a lot of cheese, so my pile is very big. So this is for 1 serving. Okay, now we're going to do some of the fine on the other side so that you can see the difference in how it looks. And this will be just the little finishing sprinkles after the dish is completed. get rid of that. Let's take a look at what's happening here. We're down to 3 minutes. I can see it already starting to thicken up a little bit. Every Cacio, a pepe recipe I saw would tell you to use half as much water as normal. And then you would take about maybe a half a cup of that water, or even a cup depending on how many servings you're making. And then you would drain the spaghetti, and then you would keep that water to pour back in to make your sauce. Which means you're putting stuff down the drain that's really good. So I like this recipe because you just cook it until the water is gone. And then you have saved everything in there. And when I say the water is gone, I don't mean all gone. You want a little tiny bit in there, of course. You want this creamy sauce for your spaghetti. This is coming along very nicely. Better to have too little water than too much, because if you have too much, by the time you cook it down, your spaghetti may be mush, and you want it al dente. So you can always just have a little water on the side to put it in there if you see that the spaghetti will not be done in time with the water. We're getting close here. I wish I had a camera here that I could show you, but this is, you can see that it's getting thick on the side. Okay, and you can use any good spaghetti. I wouldn't use fresh spaghetti for this. It cooks too quickly. So you want the box dry spaghetti, which you can buy in the grocery store. And you want to get your bowl ready. You might even want to put a little bit of warm water in that to heat it, although you're going to eat it before it gets cold, I guarantee you. This is really great stuff. So a little bit more about what I'm doing here with my cooking classes. I love to have people in my kitchen, and I do teach bread baking classes here, or I did before COVID-19. I'm not doing it anymore, and that's part of what precipitated this. I love having people in my kitchen. I love teaching, and I am hoping that after you watch me for a while, you will be totally amazing in the kitchen. You may already be amazing in the kitchen, in which case I'd love to hear from you. I've learned so much from other people. Now, I've gone so far as to go to a baking class in Paris. I went to a cooking school for 4 days in Provence, so I've had a few lessons, but pretty much I'm self-taught. Just a lot of reading, a lot of talking. I love to hear from other cooks. So I'm hoping that you'll follow me and that you will give me comments. I will make sure I pay attention to every one of them. And I will be making new friends in my kitchen, I hope. So this is close. Yes, we're there. Okay, so the bell rang at about the right time. We're going to turn this off. We don't need any more heat. We're going to scrape the pepper out of here. Put in a glug of olive oil. I don't know if that's a correct measure. Like so. For one person, that's plenty. And then we're going to take the big shards of cheese. This is aged Romano. And we're going to put it in here as well. And then we're going to stir like crazy. We're almost done. And as we stir, you will see the sauce forming, and that sauce is nothing but the little bit of remaining water that was in there, and the olive oil and the cheese. That's it. Oh, it looks lovely. Now, I'm going to put this into a bowl for serving. You know, I was born and raised on a farm. And I don't remember the Depression, but I remember World War II. I remember ration books. We were not rich farmers. We didn't know we were poor, but when I look back on it, we really were pretty poor. We wasted nothing. And there is no way my mother would have served anything without scraping the pan. If you take a look at this little thing on my counter, you will see that I have some in the dishwasher right now, and I've got about 6 of them in here. I scrape everything. Gotta get every last little bit of goodie. Okay. And now we will scrape the pan into the bowl. And here's where we do the butter. I gotta have butter. Okay, a nice big dollop of butter. While it's still hot enough. Okay, and just in case we don't have enough pepper, a couple more grinds. And then this last little bit of cheese, that is the finer, lighter, almost feathery cheese for the final the final garnish on the dish. This is it. This is called Cacio a pepe, and that means pepper and spaghetti. And it's an easy dish. It's one I think once you start making it, you will make it often. I make it too often. I'm supposed to be a low carber, but I cheat with this all the time. So anyway, I'm going to take a little taste and make sure that it tastes as good as I'm telling you it's going to taste. And we'll make sure that butter is melted in. Oh yes. Oh yes. Okay, why am I eating spaghetti on camera on my first film? This is good. This is very good.
Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno.